Good morning. It is now my pleasure to welcome our first technology demonstration of the day on AI-powered decision-making by Dr. Anshu Roy, founder and CEO of Rhombus, and Dr. Sarah Cohen, Vice President of Product and Operations at Rhombus. Sarah.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for having me here. You have possibly all heard of the phrase, the zeal of a convert. As someone who chose to be an American, I am the dictionary definition of a zealous convert. To me, America is and always will be that shining city on the hill. That ever-elusive idea that is always in the process of becoming. And I'm here to tell you that together we need to decide what the world's democracies are going to do with the knowledge we have, with the technology in our hands, and with the moment that history has given us. What will America become? I get up every day and I try to answer that question, and in a slightly different way, what will we make it together? That's why I want to introduce you to Guardian, a digital nervous system powered by AI and gaming, in which all democracies around the world can participate and collaborate to become stronger as a collective force. You see, threats continue to evolve, but time is the one resource that's never renewable. With Guardian, we can together predict threats with all-domain, real-time data at scale and speed, thousands of streams of data from land, air, sea, space, cyber, surface web, dark web, you name it. With Guardian, we can together sense, understand, predict, decide, act, if we have the courage to do so, and learn continuously to prevail. Let me bring you inside to see for yourself how we can use the power of Guardian to figure out where to look for emerging and evolving threats. With this capability, we can give you back your time and your freedom of action to help each other and to help you prevail in the face of tech-enabled autocracies. So let's start the demo, Sarah. Look, I can't show you everything today. There are even more revealing conversations we could have in other settings. But I want to give you a glimpse of Guardian, and to give you that glimpse, let me share a few stories. So my very first story will be about Sri Lanka. What you're looking at is the absence of internet right now. Hold on. But as she takes care of that, my first story is about Sri Lanka. I'm honestly telling you that. So within the Guardian platform, there are many apps. Okay, and one of these apps actually measures and predicts the level of instability around any country. So let me take you back to, say, January of 2022, this year. And as we zoom in to Sri Lanka, this is what it looked like. Blue represents the absence of much instability, relatively calm. And so while at the surface it looks very calm, all is not well. And in fact, Guardian is predicting an instability 5 months out. So what is driving these instabilities? Well, dramatic rise in unemployment, and these were things we were seeing in January, drop in GDP, debt to GDP ratio shooting up, foreign exchange reserves drop sharply, meaning that the country's ability to pay for imports is compromised. The country is just starved for money. Commodity inflation jumps from 15% to 60% in 4 months. Just think about that for a second. Staples such as rice, coconut oil, sunflower oil, bananas, they get painfully expensive. And on top of it all, cooking gas shortage happens because the country is unable to make payments to its petroleum and gas trade partners. I can tell you from my own experience growing up in India, nothing can be more painful for a middle-class family than shortage of cooking gas. I remember cooking gas shortages back when I was growing up, the pain my parents would have to go through, and we were relatively well off, for days just to arrange for a cylinder of gas so food could be cooked. But that's not it. Sri Lanka is forced to buy more liquefied natural gas from Russia in the midst of the Ukraine war. Why? Because Russia is selling it for cheap. So why is Indonesia not selling them gas anymore? Or selling less of it, or basically increasing the price? It's because Indonesia is diverting that gas internally to power its electric power plants, to produce cleaner power. Why? Because Indonesia is trying to reduce its reliance on coal-powered electricity. Makes sense. But you see, climate policies can have unintended higher-order consequences, which is why we must act in concert on climate, which is truly a globally shared gift. So imagine if you knew, if the world knew 6 months in advance that this country was going unstable. Now, we knew this through Guardian, but knowing is not enough. Knowing in time is also not enough. There must also be the will and courage to act in order to influence outcomes. Which brings me to my next story. This is about Burkina Faso. In the first week of December 2021, we were in a virtual meeting with the then president of Burkina Faso. We showed him that Burkina Faso was about to go unstable in 8 weeks. He was intrigued and he asked, "Really? What's driving it?" We told him that the most important variable was Mali's military posture as measured from sentiments within Guardian. We also told him that the Wagner Group had equities in Mali. 6 weeks later, soldiers from Mali detained and deposed the president. With AI, we knew something before it happened. We could have changed the outcome. Instead, the president lived it. So let's talk about the next story, the news of the day, the tragic news of the day, which is Ukraine. In January of 2022, this year, my team and I were in a confidential meeting with an organization called SCSP. And one of you asked me, "Anshu, it is beginning to look imminent that Russia will invade Ukraine. So when do you think that might happen?" And I replied, 4 weeks. I was off by a day. Okay. Finally, let's talk about one last story, which is the Democratic Republic of Congo. Conditions in DRC right now are at the edge of an instability. Why? Many of you perhaps know, you are greater experts at this than I ever will be. Government mismanagement, long-term rebel conflict, lack of investment in infrastructure. All of this you perhaps know. What you may not know is how all these drivers are significantly exacerbated by climate-related variables. As you can see on your screen, those green bars represent environmental variables, and they are disproportionately affecting this country. There is a compounding effect in complex systems. And there are ways to mathematize that. It is hard to pinpoint one factor over another. It's always hard. But in this case, climate-related variables far outweigh the other drivers. Sometimes it is the interplay between variables where you have to look for intervention points, and that's not obvious. So the technology works. It is continuously improving, it is continuously getting smarter, it is learning from what's happening, what's not happening, because we've set it up in that way. We've built this over the last 5 years. This is merely the surface. And it has been validated in many ways by multiple government organizations. But that's not enough. Which brings me to the most unmathematical of equations I will ever write, which is technology times scale equals impact. That's to say that technology operationalized at scale creates true impact. But to create that impact, we need a whole of government approach. We are currently operationalizing the system in some government organizations, and that's going well. I couldn't complain. But we need the whole of government to be involved. And across all democratic governments in the world, we need involvement. To do this, I say this sincerely, we need you. And I mean all of you. I'm asked very often, what is the United States doing? What are you doing to counter China's investment in AI? I think it's the wrong question. The right question is, what will the United States do with AI to ensure information dominance? In the right hands, in your hands, AI is a solution for good, there's no doubt about it. And at Rhombus, our job is to put the right AI in the right hands to make good on the promise of the liberal order and collective global security. I don't need praise or platitudes or anything like that. You don't need it either, I'm sure. I'm quite saturated hearing that we live in the information age. I mean, so what? What good is information if it can't help us solve really complex problems at the speed of relevance? I mean, the Stone Age didn't end because we ran out of stones. The information age won't become the AI age until we use it to give all of you your freedom of action back, to give you your time back. The time to choose among good options, not bad ones, as the clock begins to tick down. So much of history we grew up studying is just full of case studies in unknowns. In 1962, we didn't know the Soviets would invade Afghanistan. The Soviet missiles would head for Cuba, and until the world was very much at the brink. In 1979, we didn't know the Soviets would invade Afghanistan until tanks rolled in. But now we know, now we can know, now you can know. Just think for a second how scary that is. And with knowing, especially the future where through ways that have to do with math and computing, one can reduce the cone of uncertainty. With knowing, the excuses for inaction begin to dwindle. I'm sure you've all read The Art of War, where Sun Tzu very articulately said, if you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. And as my good friend Stan McChrystal would say, that's harder than you think, especially knowing yourself. And I agree, but I contend we can now, with AI and data, we can know ourselves far better than we ever have. Think of it at an enterprise level for a second. But the question is, are we ready? Are we ready to know ourselves fully? Are we ready to know our adversary fully? Join us to put the right tools in the right hands at the right time. For all of you in this audience, the future is actually more in your hands than it is in mine. So let's build it together. Thank you.